This is Indigo Lady, a 2002 44-foot Voyager Catamaran that was converted from a sailboat with mast and sails into a fully solar electric powered vessel more than 5 years ago. Since then, it's been well used to cruise and live aboard off-grid throughout the US, Bahamas, and throughout the Caribbean. Solar-powered boats are incredibly rare to see outside of major cities. In my 5 years of sailing, this is the only one I've ever seen, largely due to the technology having only recently become viable and only a few being brave enough to attempt it. But in this video, David, the builder and owner, is going to expertly explain how all the major systems work and how he built it. As well, David has been extremely generous and is freely giving a Google Doc with all the information and details on how to build your own solar catamaran from his tried and true example. I'll add the link in the description below, as well as his email so you can thank him. I hope this video inspires you as much as Indigo Lady and David have inspired me. Alright, let's dive on in.
There's only one way to do this whole power system. It's to go from the top down. Let's get into it.
Okay, so I wanted a boat that had plenty of solar because it's going to be solar electric, so you need a lot of real estate. So I wanted a huge roof, and the catamaran gave me that width and length to do it. So this is 600 square feet of roof, and that provides so much shade for the Caribbean that it is just amazing. We don't have an air conditioner on the boat. It's just so amazing.
That's great.
And from an engineering standpoint, we've got 2 panels in series to get the voltage up to 140, and then 5 pairs of panels in parallel to get the amperage up per side. It's a catamaran, so I split everything right down the middle, 100% redundancy, same system, both sides. So 20 panels, 10 on a side, 360 watts per panel, 7,200 watts of solar.
Wow. I love already the simplicity of that. 10 each side, series, then parallel.
It's because that kept the voltage at 140 volts.
Yeah.
And 140 volts DC is bad enough, but then the MPPT knocks it down to a 48 volt system. 48 volt DC won't kill you. The other electric boats quite often go to 400 volts. 400 volts, if you get your fingers in the wrong space, it locks up your nerves and you can't let go.
Really?
48 volts, it gets your attention, it tingles, and you can let go.
I did not know that.
Done.
So biologically, that much voltage will cause you to
your muscles lock up and you can't let go.
And then
and anybody who tries to knock you off has to physically knock you off, just
in
grab
one
you and push you.
And as I understand it, I mean, if you were to grab something and then I was to grab your wrist, I could break your wrist, you could break your own fingers. That is so interesting.
And 48 volt, no problem.
How did you learn that?
I was a physics teacher, but I also looked at a lot of different systems when I was putting this together, and that was one of the advertisement things of the 48 volt systems.
Won't kill you.
The trade-off is when my motors are running, I can have 300 amps going to them at 48 volts, which means the cables are the size of my thumb.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off.
Yeah.
But I like to live. It's a worthwhile trade-off.
I like his thinking on this a whole lot.
Next thing up here on the roof, well, 2 things up here on the roof. First off, you notice there's a gap right there.
Yeah.
The roof is in 2 halves. That's because this boat lives in the hurricane belt. I didn't want a 600 square foot wing capable of ripping my boat out of the water in hurricane force winds.
Really?
So I put an air brake down the middle of it so that the air can escape through it and create a tremendous amount less lift on it. And that also allows me to have a walkway over the top where I can mount the radar and the lights and the weather station and all that sort of stuff. It just worked out well.
So the main purpose for this, if God said the wind will never touch over 50 knots, this would just be one piece.
Right.
Very, very cool.
Right.
Very cool.
But if it's going to hit 200 knots, there's a chance the roof will survive. I mean, the adhesives, the fasteners, this roof could lift the boat out of the water without breaking. But it shouldn't, because the air should be able to escape without lifting the boat.
Wow.
And this roof should never come off from the boat. It is solid on.
That is incredible. Okay, keep going. This is great.
I thought about this for 10 years while I was a physics teacher, and I would actually use this boat in my lesson planning. I would give kids the problem of, okay, I need this much power. How much solar do I need to provide this much power to do this sort of thing? And let the kids try to figure it out too. So I had hundreds of people working on balancing the design to get things to work together right.
Design.
Yeah, and I bought the boat and decided to do it before I knew how I was going to do it. I just knew I was going to, so I did it. One other thing I want to point out, that little 5 spikes in the corner, there are 4 of those around the boat, plus 1 spike in the center. That is all part of my lightning protection system. All of those sharpened points, and they are very sharp, are connected into the aluminum framework of the roof structure, and from the 4 corners of the roof structure there are heavy cables that go down to grounded dynaplates on the outside of the hull at the surface of the water, so that in an electrical storm, as the electrons and the voltage build up on the water, the electrons flow through the dynaplates up through the framework to all of these points, and from the points flow into the air, and that reduces the voltage around the boat, so it should not get struck by lightning. There have been 2 other boats within 100 yards of us struck by lightning. We've never been hit. That's not proof, but when I was a physics teacher and I had one of those Van de Graaff generators that make people hair stand on end, I could get a huge spark off from it. But if I put a metal thumbtack on it with a sharp point, giving the electrons a chance to escape off from it, where I could get a 14-inch spark, I could now only get an 1/8 of an inch. They are that effective. So I have 5 sharpened points at 4 locations, plus 1 in the center, all from 5/16 inch stainless steel that won't melt during a high amperage contact. So it should survive, and this entire thing makes a Faraday cage, so any strike, if it does happen, will be directed around the outside of the boat, and everybody inside the boat should be safe. And my electric propulsion system is electronically isolated from that cage, so it might survive an electric strike.
I'm seeing sort of 3 major hurdles that you overcame. You overcame how to actually rig up the electricity to not die. You actually, all these involve not dying. This is great. You ended up figuring out how to make it so you had this air brake here, which I always wondered, why is this here? It's an air brake. It's an air relief even. I guess you could call it air relief. So that way your boat doesn't get thrown away. And then as well the lightning, because a lightning strike on a sailboat is already bad enough. I've dealt with some people that have had it. It's just not good. But a lightning strike on an electric boat is the end of it.
Dead in the water. And we are reducing the potential around the boat so it is less likely to get struck. Other things will get hit before us.
So the sun comes down and it hits this 7.2 kilowatts.
7.2 kilowatts.
7.2 kilowatts of solar power at 48 volts, then is going down to the MPPT solar charge controllers. We're going to look at those next, and we're going to continue this whole process all the way down. So the MPPT solar charge controllers are just down here. I'm just going to take a wild guess and say that they're the Victron.
Yes.
Because Victron makes the best MPPT. I'm not sponsored by them, but Victron, please sponsor me. These are what's going to take the varying voltage and amperage from the sun that's hitting the solar panels, and it's going to convert them and invert them. Convert them into usable electricity for the batteries. In other words, it's going to put it at a very specific voltage, and then the amperage is what usually varies. It's going to match the batteries. My batteries on my boat is a 12 volt, which means that usually for lithium, I'm charging it somewhere around like say 13.5 volts. And when I look at what it's putting in there, it'll be like 13.51 with then some amperage. So that way it's actually pushing it into there. Remember, volts are pressure, amps are the actual current itself. Think of it like water out of a hose. Volts are the actual speed of the water, and then, or the speed of the water coming out of the hose, and then the amps are the actual water itself. You need both to have a usable hose. Let's dive into the MPPT solar charge controllers. Wait a minute, that's not electric.
That is my generator. So I built this as a catamaran, so everything is 100% redundancy, full entire systems, one on each side of the boat. when we were looking at solar electric, the idea was that we could do 20 or 30 miles on solar electric without running any generator backup. But when we wanted to run overnight or heavy weather or whatnot, we wanted to have the ability to run around the clock. That required a generator. So a generator was always going to be part of this plan. So this is a 4-cylinder diesel. It's a Volvo diesel.
Is that a D240?
Yeah.
This is the same motor as my boat.
And I have 2 of them.
Oh my gosh.
So this motor has a 250 volt AC alternator close coupled to it, and the alternator then goes to a diode bank right back there to convert it to 48 volt DC. So the diesel runs an alternator making AC, which goes through a diode bank to make DC, which goes to the 48 volt battery bank. So that's how that generator provides electricity.
And I know we're kind of jumping the gun here, you guys, because we're trying to go from the sun to the solar panels to the MPPTs, just what we're hitting first. But this is technically just a separate power generation system. Again, 1 is none, 2 is few. You want to have that extra stuff on the boat.
Right.
So the
heart of the system, everything feeds through into a massive bus bar. And the bus bar, that blue thing down there that says Ocean Volt SD15, that's the actual Ocean Volt electric motor.
Yeah.
That's the 15 kilowatt electric motor with a sail drive underneath it. Right above the Ocean Volt motor is the Victron Lynx Power in. Those are the massive bus bars that everything connects to. So those bus bars are the heart of the system. So into them we have the solar MPPT, which is right above the bus bars. So the MPPT feeds into the bus bars. The diesel generator feeds into the bus bars. The battery bank feeds into the bus bars. The inverter comes off from the bus bars, so that makes our 110 AC for house powers. And the electric motor has an electric motor controller over here. That's what takes power from the bus bar, either from the generator or from the battery bank or the solar or any combination of the 3. And that actually takes 48 volt DC, bumps it back to 230 AC 3-phase, and then runs the electric motor to get the variable speed capability. And it seems like it should be bad going from AC to DC back to AC, but they're all in the 90+% efficiency range, so it works very well, and that allows me to run the generator up at the 80 to 90% range whenever I run it, so that one generator can run both electric motors and charge a battery bank at the same time. So the generators are always running at peak efficiencies, and the last thing you want to do to a diesel is run it at idle or low power for long periods of time. So all of the equipment is working at peak performance.
So would you say you normally just run one generator at a time if you want to have that extra juice?
Yeah, when we do an overnight crossing, we have a cross-ship cable. That's what these 2 battery switches are right here for. That allows us to have one generator running both electric motors and one battery bank and both solar panels all connected to one system, and we just run one generator overnight as we run. We can even get to the point where the one generator is powering both motors and has completely charged the battery bank, and the generator shuts off for 3 or 4 hours, and we just cruise at night on a battery bank.
No way.
And then it starts up again.
That's so cool. Now, let me ask, this is a burning question of mine. How much can you run if it was just the sun was up? Say you started however many hours before the sun comes up with what's on the batteries, and you don't want to use no generators. How long can you go with while the sun is out at peak performance?
When the sun is shining, say from 10 to 3, we are taking in 7.2 kilowatts of solar, and 7.2 kilowatts means each motor is running at about 3.6 kilowatts, and we're cruising at about 5 knots at that speed. So there's 5 hours of cruising at 5 knots just on incoming solar without touching the battery banks or the generators.
That's cool. And that's where I think the magic to this is improving that gap, making that gap bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. Okay, so from the top, the sun shines down on 7.2 kilowatts of solar panels.
Yep.
At 48 volts, those come down here to that MPPT solar charge controller.
Yep.
That solar charge controller then goes to a main bus that will go either straight to the end, or straight to the electric propulsion, or to the battery bank. Correct?
Yeah.
As well, I guess I should say, and/or to the Victron multi-plus here.
Inverter.
Yeah, that's just giving them AC power on the boat for everything. But those are really like the main things, either the electric generator, or electric engines, or the. Your 12-volt loads at this point aren't worth. They're just.
They're refrigeration, freezer, stuff.
But there's such a side note in the grand scheme of how much juice you're running here.
And the actual 12-volt house loads are all powered through the Quattro inverter, because the Quattro inverter makes 110, and we have a Pro Mariner 12-volt battery charger that takes the 110 and charges the 12-volt house batteries, which run the lighting in the fridge and freezer. On just the batteries, we can do 4 to 5 hours cruising at 4 to 5 knots on just batteries. So we're looking at 20 to 30 miles on just batteries.
So if you want to get your max, no diesel generator included, your max just green energy, if you will, you would start at like 5 in the morning or something?
Well, if we start at 8 o'clock in the morning, the sun isn't shining very much at that point.
It doesn't count for much.
So the first couple hours, you're using mostly battery, and then by then the sun is up and you're using mostly solar, and then by 3 o'clock or so, you're losing some of the sun. You're back to running on your batteries again.
Yeah.
And by 5 o'clock, you drop anchor. So you've been going for 8 hours at
just 40
5 knots
miles
or so. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
and then if you do that, by then you're down to maybe 20% on your batteries. You anchor up. That 20% on your batteries is still going to take you through the night on your house loads.
Oh yeah, easy.
And the next day, if you're staying at anchor the next day, by noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, your batteries are going to be back up to 100%.
No way.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to talk about this more in depth, but it sounds like increasing your house battery bank is what would just increase that range even more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We have 32 kilowatt hours of battery bank. If we doubled that, boy, that just pushes your range further and further.
The more you go.
And in our lifestyle, we plan on being at anchor for a day or two or longer, most anywhere we go.
Yeah.
So even if we arrive with batteries pretty much flat, the next day they're going to be topped up.
That's so cool. And let's take a quick look at the battery banks.
Okay.
Yeah, look at this.
Because that's all.
Actually, Dave, what is this? What's my length by width by height here?
This is
Roughly
16 inches by 24 inches by 10 inches, roughly.
That is not a lot of space.
No, it's small.
That is so small.
And it's I went to Home Depot and had one piece of 3/4 inch plywood cut into everything I needed for 2 battery banks.
Oh, you put a tube around this.
These are 1/4 inch steel all thread rods
and you just
with
zip them in.
rubber tubing over it.
And you have to put this here.
Those are little fiberglass spacers between each of the cells. They came right with the batteries when I bought the batteries.
Oh, really? I had to make my own out of cutting board.
Supplied them. They were like 50 cents a piece.
Yeah, and the reason for them is the batteries can expand, and you don't want anything to get between them.
Right. Well, the batteries can expand about 0.5 millimeter at full charge. So with 8 of them in a row, that's 4 millimeters of expansion. If you can limit that, you have extended battery life. So by putting these rods on that put a compression on it to limit the expansion, and that makes the batteries last longer.
No way. That's so cool. As well, I mean, you need to strap things down anyway for the open ocean. So you're killing 2 birds, 1 stone.
Here, that bolt this down to the substrate, so this is not going anywhere.
Do you know how much this might weigh right here? Not that it really
just
matters.
about 200 pounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It weighs a lot more than I thought it would, but in the grand scheme of a
density
boat,
comes with mass density.
Now I'm curious though. Say instead we removed the diesel generators.
Yeah.
I mean, how much? I mean, what do you think that is? 1,000?
Each diesel generator is about 500 pounds.
Oh, 500. Okay, but still, I mean, yeah. So you could, you quadruple the batteries and you go that. I mean, it is a full send. There is some danger to it, but just so cool to see this.
The technology has come far enough that if I were to do this again, I would probably have one big battery bank, one generator, 2 electric motors, one big solar array. I wouldn't do the full redundancy. That things have gotten so reliable these days.
Really, that's incredible.
So with one generator, one big battery bank, one big solar array, and 2 electric motors, now your weight is down, your space is more available, your costs are down.
That's cool. I'm really excited to see this. I'm very curious if in 5 years it becomes so much more common to see electric cruising boats, because it has to happen. Has to happen. Because you think about it, and so the big reason why this is so cool, in my opinion, is on my sailboat, for power sources, I have electricity, I have gasoline, I have diesel, I have propane, and I have oil as well that's needed for a lot of that stuff, as well as coolants and other things like that. With the Ocean Volt electric motor, compared to like a diesel engine, like there's no like bands on it. There's no belts.
Every year I check the oil level. I haven't changed it since
every year. So there's no coolant.
No.
We can so you don't have to keep coolant on your boat.
No.
We don't need to have spark plug. Obviously, it's a diesel, so you'd have glow plugs. We don't need to worry about fuel filters. You cannot get bad fuel. There's a lot of benefits if you can get this right. And I'm excited to do this because if you had a fully electric boat, that means you don't need propane, you don't need diesel, you don't need the oil, the transmission fluid, you don't need like...
The engine oil is continuous with the sail drives, and that has been...
Is it just regular engine oil?
Well, it's a synthetic oil.
Yeah.
But that's what's in the electric motor and the sail drive, and that's it.
Really? That's so cool. So you get to reduce all these things that you would otherwise need to have on the boat, all these things that can break down. Because you got to remember, your engine works fine until one of the many components doesn't. And I do not understand electric engines very well just yet. I will soon, I'm sure. But am I correct in saying that an electric engine is just infinitely simpler?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Infinitely simpler. It goes arky sparky, which is scary, but like
three wires come out of the electric motor.
No, oh my gosh! The cells of this are much larger amperage than the one that I built my lithium battery bank out of. So each one of these cells is 304 amp hours at 3.2 volts.
Yes, that is it.
Wow, that's a big cell.
And you put 16 of them together, you have 304 amp hours at 56 volts.
I'm very happy I have this on camera so I can write that math down later from my simple brain.
And that's 32 kilowatt hours of batteries from 2 banks. Each bank is 16 kilowatt hours.
Wow. Yeah, but I thought it would be so much more. Mm-hmm. So I just did the math out. My battery bank is 6.8 kilowatt hours, right? Yep. 6,816 watt hours, right? This battery bank is
32 kilowatt hours. This one is 16. I have 2 banks.
So effectively, their battery bank capacity is 5 times?
Yeah.
It's 5 times mine. Now, I thought it was going to be like 30 times mine, so I'm kind of surprised it's not more. And I can't help but wonder I would assume that battery technology has increased while you've been doing this.
Yeah.
So this has been an ongoing thing, and where this used to all be filled because of those massive things, now we can build these cells that are so much more efficient. And I would assume that in the future here, you're going to just double up your battery bank and just increase.
Look at this platform right here.
Yeah, I
can put a second one of those
right there.
There.
It changes nothing. You're just good to go.
And then
I go access to it. You can cool it.
32 kilowatt hours to 64 kilowatt hours, and then I've got
10 hours of motor.
Then I got 60 nautical miles on battery power.
Wow, 60 nautical mile on battery power. Now, if you did that, how long do you think it would take you to go from, say they're flat at midnight? Well, whenever the sun comes up. How long do you think it would take from sunrise? You know what I'm saying? So so not just your peak hours,
right?
But sunrise coming up. How long do you think it would take you, just roughly? I know that's a weird question.
The battery banks that I have now, the 32 kilowatt hours of battery bank, from sunup until about 1 p.m. the batteries would be fully charged. If I had double it at 64, then it would be close as to whether one full day of sunlight would charge it entirely or not.
Okay, so nearly a full day if you go flat.
Yeah,
but you're not normally going to go flat.
We're looking at maybe 60 kilowatt hours a day from these solar panels with down here in the Caribbean. So much.
And you got to factor daylight savings into that.
Stand out in the sun for 15 minutes and you can feel how much energy there
No, it is true. I'm regrowing my bottom lip from it. No, that's a really good point. The sun that's cooking you, that's giving us cancer, is also our electricity.
Yeah.
So, and when you consider the surface area of this, and it's unimpeded by a mast, by a boom, by anything, that is so cool. So really, where my brain is gearing towards is I do not want a generator. I want no petrol on the boat. That's the goal for me. And I think that for you guys, you did it right. And I gotta say that now because I hope I don't sound like I'm condescending in any of this stuff. I don't want a generator, but I see why you had to because I don't think the technology was here for you yet.
Right, and we were an early implementer. I did this 8 years ago. And 8 years ago, the batteries weren't what they are these days, and I wanted to be able to do island hops from one island chain to the next, and sometimes that's 100 miles. And so you do
rarely that's 100 though.
You do that as an overnight jump. Yeah, so when
but most are like 50, if that, or 40.
Right.
And if you're in the Bahamas, you're looking at 10. Or less, depending on what you want to do. Or if you're going Anchorage to Anchorage. I mean, so we just did, for instance, your next biggest jump without an anchorage would be Virgin Gorda to St. Martin. And that's 80 nautical miles. I just did that. So you think about how far is your motor range right now is, what did you say it was?
30 or so.
30 or so. So I mean, but then if you were to up it.
You double your capacity, you extend that dramatically.
And that's just doubling it. What if we triple, quadruple?
Right, and this was because I was retrofitting an existing sailboat. If you were buying a salvage or making a storm damaged boat and you could plan the space, this used to be the hanging locker for the aft cabin.
This is a closet for hanging clothes. Closet for hanging clothes is moving a massive house on the ocean for hours.
If you could build this, the batteries for this two system was $4,300. So if you put quadruple that into it, you're putting under $20,000 into batteries, and you have the space to put them up. Then you're talking about 100-mile ranges.
Oh my gosh. So 100-mile, then there really is no more. Now let's add on one more level to this. The kite.
Oh yeah.
So I'm talking about with what I would want to build one day. I would use effectively a kiteboarding kite, and I could do that for the demo just fine. But a bit forward from where the mast would be, and you pick downwind days, you find what angles you can do, and you do it. But I would be doing it manually, not electronically. And there'd be things to figure out. There'd be a process to it. I have it in my head though, as far as like how to do it. I kiteboard, I sail, and I've kiteboarded on my dinghy. So like it's possible.
There's wind totally that you can harness.
And I got to wonder, by the way, so you said you have, and I'm sorry to ask you one more time, your range on only battery right now?
Between 20 and 30.
Cool. So 20 and 30, and I would assume that's 20 upwind, 30 downwind.
So and we can, if we're going into 4 to 6 foot seas and 15 to 20 knot winds, we're doing about 4 to 4.5 knots.
Now, and the thing is owning a catamaran makes you more comfortable in whatever anchorage you're in. So you're more likely to wait for your good weather window. But say you do want to go up the thorny path, you would have to do this, and you would eventually have your jumps to be a little bit further. But having a catamaran that doesn't have a deep draft opens up your options for where you can anchor. If being a catamaran means you're going to be more comfortable there, picking up a ton of solar while you're there, waiting out your weather window for when the wind is in your favor, when the sea state is in your favor, so you have a better direction going for it. I mean, it's all just so possible. So I'd be very, very curious to know what a kite up the front would do. I mean, that could be substantial.
The thorny path, that's what we took. I mean, we came from New Hampshire down the ICW, across the Gulf Stream, down through the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos.
We've done the same route. It's so cool.
Mona Passage. Down here, down to...
We've done the same route, but they don't have to wait for a bridge. They just go under. I have to wait with my mast.
16 foot 1 inch.
Oh my gosh, 16 foot 1 inch. I wonder if that will do the St. Martin Bridge. That's got to be close.
I think that's like 11 or so. So they got.
Oh, is it?
I think
Okay,
they got
all right.
to get into the lagoon.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. This is amazing. I've got a bunch more questions. I hate to make this video so long, you guys, but you see my face on this. This is so cool. I'm amazed at the power density that's here. Yeah. And this is the thing this is where the technology is now. I'm planning on building my solar power catamaran in about 5 years. There is so much money and focus on batteries for your cell phone, for my underwater subnados, for my boost fin. I mean, I have so many electronic things just on my boat, and then let alone on land. Now you have scooters, you have e-bikes, you're going to have electric cars. So there's so much pressure in the world economically, scientifically, monetarily, and that's the one that matters for an scientific advancement in power density of batteries, making batteries more efficient, making them out of better materials, right, making them more ecologically friendly so we don't have to mine so much cobalt and everything else. So I'm really excited to see where this could grow in just 5 years. I am very well, let's get to the interview because I got some questions here. There's one final note that I want to share with you. It is so difficult to find someone who actually knows such a difficult field so well, but then as well someone who still knows the practical application for it and can use it. And then on top of that is willing to share that knowledge. And then on top of all of that can simply and easily explain it to someone like me in a way that I can understand it. Dave is that man. And his knowledge to me is worth $1 million. So lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you to David for sharing all his knowledge with me, to Lisa for her hospitality, and to both of them for indulging my curiosity and my shenanigans for jumping through the hatch. My Emmy Award-winning moment, save yourself! Save yourself! They were absolutely wonderful, and I really appreciate it. As well, if you haven't yet, be sure to check out the full boat tour that I did in last week's video. And the second half of that video is an interview that details their entire story with the boat and their personal lives as to how they got where they are. Check it out when you can. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you plan to build an electric catamaran, because you know what? I want to document it and see how it goes. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. I hope you feel inspired to begin adventures of your own. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For an exclusive, in-depth look at this adventure lifestyle, and to further support my channel, become a member of my Patreon crew. Link in the description. I'll see you on the next adventure.